Hey everybody, welcome back to Collect and Reflect. Eric here, and we all need to get our Triforce and or tinfoil hats on because it is time to talk about the new trailer that dropped for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So during today's Nintendo Direct, February the 8th, 2023, we got a new look at the upcoming Zelda game, a new game in the mainline Zelda series, and a sequel to the fantastic Breath of the Wild that came out roughly 5 years ago now for the Nintendo Switch. So we're going to take a look at some elements from the trailer, some things that we notice, and do a little bit of analysis, a little bit of theorizing here on what some of these things can mean for the upcoming game. And I'm sure we will all be talking about this for the months to come up until the game's release on May 12th, 2023. So not doing a full breakdown or Easter egg content here. We want to keep this brief and just talk about a few theories, mainly focusing on one key element that we noticed in today's trailer. So without further ado, here we go. So today's trailer gave us a look at what is going on in Hyrule, possibly post-game, post the events in Breath of the Wild. And in the very first trailer that we saw, just the teaser trailer, we saw Link and Zelda going through some caverns, possibly underneath Hyrule, where they encounter some sort of semi-mummified creature. A lot of people think that it's going to be Ganondorf, and there's some sort of curse, some sort of new malice that's being unleashed, likely still Ganondorf, and we saw Hyrule Castle raised up into the sky. And in the trailer that we saw today, we saw a lot more of this. We heard a voice that many people believe to be Ganondorf, giving his message to the people, to his minions, to take out the inhabitants of Hyrule and to take down Zelda, and just to institute his reign once again. And we're seeing a lot of just a really dark theme in the sense of the scope of what's happening. It looks like there's a lot of explosions. The malice is coming out of the castle, a lot like it did 100 years ago, prior to the start of Breath of the Wild. And we are also seeing new versions of monsters that we're familiar with. A lot of them basically just have like one additional horn or some sort of variation that lets you know, like, hey, these are not exactly the same monsters. The Moblins and Bokoblins, and even some of the Lizalfos that we saw. And yeah, things look extreme. Things look pretty dire in Hyrule right now. And so this really made me start thinking back to, okay, so what have we seen so far in the trailers? We have seen the cave scene where it looks like this is likely going to be probably pretty close to the start of the events of Tears of the Kingdom. And then we've seen basically like this depiction of hieroglyphs on caves that are telling a story of what happened in some days past, some ancient war, which is reminiscent of some of the cave drawings and hieroglyphs that we saw in Breath of the Wild, that we're talking about not just what happened 100 years ago, but what was found to have happened 10,000 years ago, which is the whole reason that the Sheikah and the Kingdom of Hyrule was attempting to prepare for the return of Ganondorf, was because of this legend of 10,000 years ago. And I think what we're seeing in the Tears of the Kingdom trailers so far is basically maybe not a time even further back. It could be even further back than 10,000 years ago, but maybe just there's more to the story here and more to what happened, as is often the case in the Zelda timeline. So we start off Breath of the Wild and 100 years have passed, and then we're talking about events that happened 10,000 years prior to that, and just this theme of through time that we're always seeing throughout the entire Zelda series. Link often travels through time in several of the games. He travels, going back to Link to the Past, we've got Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword. Their time travel was a big element in all those games. So I really would not be surprised if time travel becomes an element in this game. And I want to bring back a small clip that is really the founding force behind a lot of my theories from the trailer that we saw today. And that is a clip of the ceremony where Link is being coronated as the sworn guardian to Zelda. And Zelda makes a comment, or has a line in part of the speech: whether adrift in time, skyward bound, or steeped in twilight. And that is clearly reference to previous titles in the Zelda series. maybe, you know, this is obviously just part of a legend, but I think it's important that those three are specifically mentioned. Adrift in Time, like I said, that could be many titles. It could be Ocarina of Time. It could be A Link to the Past. It could be Skyward Sword. But just the concept that Link, the chosen warrior, travels through time. It's not a crazy thing for him to do. This is something that comes up often. But Skyward Bound, obviously referring to Skyward Sword, and Steeped in Twilight, referring to Twilight Princess and the Dark World and the Twilight and Midna. And if you remember, there was a connection there back in Twilight Princess where there was a sky world that we went to, and it seemed like by the time that Skyward Sword came out that this is maybe like a future state of Skyloft, and maybe Skyloft is you know, kind of earlier in that Zelda timeline. So without going too far into the overall Zelda timeline, I just think that there's a connection between what we're going to see in Tears of the Kingdom and those three concepts, right? Adrift in Time, meaning there's some sort of time travel. Skyward Bound, we've seen the different structures. You know, Hyrule is physically being lifted up into the sky, and we've seen Link soaring through the sky at much higher heights than we have in the past, and, you know, leading to, you know, something to do not necessarily with Skyloft from Skyward Sword, but something to do with the legends from Skyward Sword, especially what we saw there with, you know, Zelda being the reincarnation of the goddess Hylia, and then Steeped in Twilight. And this is something going back to the very first teaser that we saw, is there going to be a connection to the Twilight Princess being Midna and some of the characters and some of the lore from that game. One thing that really makes me think that I don't know if we're necessarily going to see Midna, or we're going to have direct references to the Twilight Princess storyline, but we've talked about the hand in the past, and we've seen the hand, that the green hand, green glowing energy from it, and that seems to be holding that mummified corpse of possibly Ganondorf in place. And then we see Link, it's seeming like he's inflicted with some sort of, you know, version of that hand. It almost seems like that hand is part of him. And we hear in the new trailer, Zelda says to Link, I don't know if we're going to be able to beat Ganondorf or if we're going to be able to stop him. And at the very end of the trailer is saying, please lend him your power. And it's seeming like Zelda is calling out to someone else to help Link in what he needs to do to save the day in this one. And I think it's very possible that the person that they're calling out to is not necessarily Midna specifically, but a Midna-esque figure, maybe one of the Twilight, somebody from the Twilight realm that needs to help out here. And I've got a few reasons for that. One of them just being we're similar in color here, right? The green energy that is coming out of the hand, the green energy and magic that we're seeing in the trailers, the green and the two-headed or possibly twin serpents or dragons that we see in the logo. All the color there reminds me of the energy that we see in the Twilight realm, in the fused shadow in Midna's crown that she is putting together in that game, and sort of the energy that emanates from it, and Midna's overall color scheme as well, whether in the imp form or whether in Midna's full form. So I just see a similarity there. So again, I'm not saying that this is necessarily, the hand doesn't look exactly the same, but there is this moment where we see a hand that looks like Zelda clasp and hold hands with another hand, and then we see some nails in there. It looks like some long nails, something like that. It looks like it could be the Twilight Princess. And if we remember back to the beginning of Twilight Princess, the game, Princess Zelda relied and trusted the Twilight Princess to help and guide Link, because Princess Zelda surrendered her kingdom to try to save as many lives as she could, and had to rely on the help of Link and the Twilight Princess being Midna. So I think a similar thing might be happening here. I think that Zelda may need help again from someone from the Twilight realm, or at least, you know, this ancient version of it. So I think that may be the hand that we're seeing, and I think that the hand that we see that Link is wielding and maybe wielding some new powers from and taking some actions might actually be the hand of that person that Zelda is hoping to lend Link their power. He actually has that hand on, and that's gonna be, you know, helping him accomplish some things in the game, gameplay wise. One more thing I just have to mention about the possible connection between Tears of the Kingdom and Twilight Princess, the Twilight Realm, Midna possibly coming back in general. And this is definitely a put your tinfoil hat on, take with a grain of salt theory. But the voices that we heard in the very first Tears of the Kingdom teaser, that kind of backwards sounding dialogue that we hear being chanted throughout the cavern, and that same voice that we heard at the end of the most recent trailer. I was thinking about those voices for a long time after I saw that first teaser trailer, and then it finally came back to me. That seems very similar to the voice that we remember from Twilight Princess that Midna used to speak in. So most Zelda games don't have full voice acting involved, but Midna was a special case in the Twilight Princess game because they actually did have a voice actor who came in and recorded various lines for Midna. And what they did with that voice is, rather than let them play out like any normal character would, they actually scrambled up that voice and either just completely reversed it or scrambled it in some cases. But I think that it sounds very similar to the voices that we're hearing in this trailer as well. So take a look real quick at the voice that we hear in the very first teaser. And now let's listen to a small clip of some audio from Midna in Twilight Princess. Again, I don't think these are exactly the same, but they are similar enough to me. And especially with the other clues that have been kind of sprinkled along like breadcrumbs here, I think that we may at least get a reference to Midna here. We have something to do with the Twilight Realm. We've got our Skyward Bound from the ceremony speech from Zelda, Whether Skyward Bound. We've got Skyloft coming back in a way with the giant sky islands that are coming out. We've got a drift through time. Link originally slept for 100 years. We're talking about a legend from 10,000 years ago. And now finally we're going to see that steeped in twilight. That is possibly going to be a reference to that Twilight Realm. So I'm hoping that that's something that plays out. But again, hey, I would be happy being totally wrong here and something even way cooler happening. So if you've got other theories, if you think our theories are completely bogus, definitely let us know in the comments. So moving right along. Going back to what we've seen in the other trailers, we just see this iconography of the twin dragons or twin snakes, both in the logo, both in elements of the first trailer, and even in elements of Twilight Princess the game. There was a lot of that same iconography used in Midna's crown. They look like twin snakes that would come and turn around. And I just think this ideal of there being kind of like twin spirits, kindred spirits through Princess Zelda and Midna, I think that concept might be coming back around, especially because Zelda's asking for help in the trailer. We see the hands holding, and eventually we look at Link. And we can't forget that we've seen two versions of Link in this game, so that's another kind of this twin kindred spirit storyline that might be playing out. We have the current present day Link that we know from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and then it looks like we've got this older kind of ancient version of Link with longer hair, different clothing, and possibly different abilities. So I think it's possible we might play as two different Links throughout this game, and that might be kind of how we traverse from very high up into the sky or very low down into Hyrule, and be traveling through those timelines. And I definitely think that that's going to be an element there. So my big takeaways here are we might be seeing the return of the Twilight Realm, maybe possibly Midna herself, possibly, or at least a hard reference to or callback or sort of Easter egg to that. And I do think that is somebody from that realm or somebody from another realm that is going to be lending power to Link and Zelda as they go on their journey throughout this game. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on the trailer so far. Again, these are just theories. This is just having fun. Like I said, we've got our tinfoil hats on here, and we'll be talking about this for a while leading up into May. Another thing that we want to mention is there's been a little bit of a controversy since the trailer dropped, and a little bit before. It looks like Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom may be Nintendo Switch's first mainline retail $70 retail price game, following along the lines of what Sony and Microsoft have been doing with their, big first-party AAA titles being $70 for those current gen systems. Really don't know how to feel about that. I don't think that, in terms of charging more for a game, for a system, we're not getting a new system. This isn't coming out for the Switch 2 or anything like that. I don't see why we have to, jump overhead $10. I am always hoping that on the bright side of things, hey, maybe it is $70 because the amount of content that we're getting in this game is just so extreme, and maybe there'll be a price drop somewhere in the future. So if you have already pre-ordered this game, it was originally listed for $60, and retailers basically leading up to the Nintendo Direct today all pulled down their pre-orders and are slowly relisting them for $70. I know Best Buy right now is listing, here in the US that is, listing the Tears of the Kingdom for $70. GameStop, I see, still has a $60 price tag. It's entirely possible they may honor that, but it's also just as likely that they may end up asking you to fork over another $10 by the time that game comes out. So all that set aside, pre-orders are open for the game, whether it be $60 or $70, but Nintendo has confirmed that the price of this game will be $70, so be prepared to pay that. And what we did also get was a glimpse at the collector's edition for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And the collector's edition includes this nice box. We also get the game itself. We get the steelbook for a game. We get a steel poster. So I'm guessing it is basically a poster, probably about something about this big. And it's going to be, you know, a metal poster that you can put up on your wall somewhere. We also get this really nice pin set. And of course, as is common with most collector's editions these days, we get a art book. So I was hoping for a soundtrack like we've gotten in previous Zelda titles, but no soundtrack here. Hopefully that releases somewhere else along the way as an official release. But that is what we're getting from the collector's edition. I believe the retail price for the collector's edition is supposed to be $129.99. So going from $70 to $130, we're looking at about $60 additionally that you'll be spending for the collector's edition. Is this $60 worth of stuff? I'm not so sure. I really want that steelbook and I like that pin set, but an additional $60 on top of the $70 game, a game that's already more expensive than it normally is. I'm not super happy about that kind of high price tag of $130. So I'm hoping it's worth it. I'm hoping that art book is really worthwhile. I'm definitely going to pre-order that. I am a huge Zelda collector in general, so that is something that I'm going to want to have in my collection. So on May 12th, when that comes out, we'll definitely be unboxing a collector's edition one way or another, so hopefully you guys can see when it comes out. But if you're looking forward to getting that collector's edition, as far as pre-orders go, I haven't seen any go up yet. Usually GameStop does these in store for release day. You got to go into the store. I would give your local store a call, try to go in and see if they're doing pre-orders yet. I haven't seen any online retailers list the collector's edition just yet. But again, this trailer and the announcement of the collector's edition was just hours ago. So it is likely by tomorrow, by the time that you see this video, that those pre-orders have gone up. So go ahead and check out Amazon, Best Buy, GameStop, the other retailers in the US for the collector's edition. As far as UK and other regions, you're going to have to look into those regions. I am most familiar with the US region, so those are the stores that I know that will be carrying them. And then finally, in addition to that, a new Amiibo figure was announced for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And it is this new version of Link that we've seen in a lot of the trailers, kind of reaching out and having that either affliction or maybe an upgrade power arm with that green energy coming off of it. And not entirely sure what that Amiibo figure is going to do just yet, but obviously it's probably going to give us some cool in-game items and have some cool functionality. Pre-orders for that Amiibo do seem to be going live today. As of right now, at about 10 p.m. US Eastern Time, looks like Best Buy has a pre-order available for that Amiibo, and I'm sure the other retailers will have that Amiibo up for pre-order soon. And the collector's edition, still coming. So I'm definitely going to be heading out to a local GameStop tomorrow to see if I can ask or at least find out some more information about pre-orders. So if you stay tuned to this channel, like this video to let us know that you want to see more stuff like this, and subscribe if you want to see more in the future. We'll definitely be letting you know any more news that we find out about the pre-orders, probably in the form of our YouTube shorts, to let you know that we either got a pre-order for the collector's edition or at least found out more information. And when that game comes out, we'll definitely be heading out to a midnight release. Hopefully one happens, and we can hang out with some other Zelda enthusiasts that night in May and get the game when it comes out and be ready to play right away. So thanks for sticking around. If you watched this far, thanks so much. It really means a lot. And otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.